My name is David Ashby, and I'm the Online Instructor Development Manager. And so my team is in charge of all the evaluation, certification, professional development, goal setting, OL 200, leadership training, OCR training, and a couple other things.
And I'm Heather Carter. I'm one of the online instructor managers on Kimball Benson. And I'm in charge of things I don't want to tell you about, so you still like me. Of course, visit rubric, which we'll talk about how this fits into that today. But yeah, management and instructors.
Yeah. So we're just going to do a little tag team today. We'll kind of go back and forth. We've got a couple activities we want you guys to be with us on. We want your involvement. We want your input. This is not a sit and get, let us bore you for 30 minutes kind of presentation. It will be if I talk the whole time. That's why I brought Heather. So we want to start off the conversation by asking, what do you feel like notes from instructor are? Like, what are they? What are notes from instructors supposed to be? What do you put in them?
Well, my perspective of notes from instructors is a place where you can help give tips and advice to your students to help them be successful with the course material that week. So if the application activities are going to be keeping track of how they spend their time for 48 hours, put that in notes from instructor, your notes there, so that they're aware, oh, I need to get started early on my application activity this week. That's what I think is most helpful, at least for my students when they've said that. They appreciate it when I give them a heads up on stuff.
So clarification of things maybe the course isn't always totally clear about.
And some things change. Things are set in certain patterns, and sometimes that pattern changes 1 week out of 10. And so you got to remind them of that. Yeah, great. Tori.
I think, when we're given these courses, we're intelligent people, and we're given this course curriculum. This is how I make what another intelligent person makes it my course. It's the only way I feel like it is mine. And that buying into that myself, I think helps the students buy into it as well.
Personalization.
So I just to follow up on that, that's where I get to teach, is in my notes from the instructor. So the things that I can add to what's already there.
Yeah, helps bring in that human element.
And one of the part to say is personalization. For me as an instructor, but also personalization for the needs of the students. So whoever I saw in the class, their needs might be different.
That brings up to specific course dynamics within a given semester. So the great place for group feedback, trends that you're seeing. So it might not be the exact same semester to semester. It might change based on what's happening in that particular semester.
Yeah. One thing we're kind of getting onto is a little bit of whole class feedback, right? So this is one thing that we were seeing not enough of in notes from instructors, this idea of whole class feedback. You don't have to, if all your students are making one mistake, or a lot of your students are making the same mistake over and over and over, your notes from instructor is a great place to put, hey, we're seeing this problem, this pitfall is frequent in our classroom. Here's how to fix that. And you can refer students back there frequently. You try to make sure there's value added there. What other things do you put inside a notes from instructor page?
That's the question before we go on. Are notes from instructor going to carry on when we're done with IONER?
Don't jump the gun.
You're
gonna ruin the rest of my presentation.
So you can hear the answer at the end.
It's a great question, and we're going to answer that at the end of the day because it's important. Yeah. Yeah, let's go.
I actually put a spiritual thought in there to get them thinking. Sometimes it's linked to the content of what we're learning. Sometimes it's just something that I feel like they need to get over. I like to put the hope one in there when it gets to mid-semester so that keep them hoping and going on.
Yeah, inspiration. It's a great way to tackle that first instructor standard.
Sometimes I feel like they get tired of reading so much. So I try not to have so much revision, I try to share a video. And then I trick them and lock it where they can't leave until they watch however long it is, to 2 or 3 minutes. And I've had a lot of good feedback with having video rather than having this.
That's a great point, is maintaining the balance. We're talking about all this stuff that can be part of it, but maintaining that balance, especially in courses like I hear about GS 120, the students having so much to read every week. Is that just tacking too much on to what's already there? So depending on the course too, yeah, you've got to be thoughtful about balance, definitely.
Yeah, I want to just kind of jump on to it for a second, but we were in a instructional design conference, our team, last week, and we were talking about what really makes learning happen. You know, what are really some of those key elements? And we're talking about Joel Galbraith's dissertation for his PhD, and we got into the emotional effect that learning has, and what effect emotions have on making sure that learning stays. And so one of these things we're talking about personalization, especially with video, is you're making that personal emotional connection through your experiences, through your voice, through your personality, that really get the students involved in your classroom into a new way that sometimes you can't do with text. And so what we're trying to say is we need to have, not that text is bad, but we need to have a well-rounded kind of notes from instructor. Text, audio, video, images, all those things are really important to have to make these extra connections to students and tie the content to their particular experiences and knowledge.
Yeah, actually read my mind.
Did I?
Yeah.
Could you say it better than me?
No,
I'm sure you could. Other ideas? All right, so here's our next question. So we kind of talked a little bit about this. It's kind of the same question. I wanted to ask, what are notes from instructor, and what are the principles behind notes from instructor? And the reason why I'm going to ask the principles question is because of the Island 3 thing that's going to come up at the end. Because as we change LMSs, the learning platform can change, but what's going to stay the same are the principles behind it. So the tool may change, but what are the principles? What are you trying to accomplish inside these notes from instructor? You need to carry over from one thing to the next. We kind of talked about these, but what are some more ideas that you have about that? You should let that sit for a second.
Kind of doing a presentation on the third thing. I feel like it's a great place when you connect with the student, and it becomes like this is, as we said before, this is the only thing that's coming from you with your expertise and all that. This is where you prepare them to be successful for that assignment that week, where they have that connection to you, whether it be group feedback or whatever you utilize that creatively. And what the principle is, this is what makes you really the instructor for them, aside from feedback and email. This is your connection.
So I hear from that, develop relationships with students.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of going off what you said, kind of in a nutshell, but one thing that I tell my students is, because we can't sit down together in a classroom face to face, this is what I would be saying to you if we were in that thing. That's what that page is for.
Saving yourself some time on the back end of feedback, addressing them.
Absolutely. That's the principle of whole class feedback, to save yourself a lot of time. You don't have to keep saying the same thing over and over. You don't have to keep copying and pasting the same feedback in every person's box on each assignment. Yeah, in the back.
It seems like, at least as I understand them, how I use them, provides some order. It's a principle of order, I would say. I tell my students that the notes from instructor is the master calendar, the master information, the master direction. Whatever I learn gives them the conflict with the notes from instructor, they should ignore. It's a place where, it's a place to bring order to this sometimes confusing online space.
Well, sometimes, piggybacking on him is, sometimes there was an error or something that came in the class on a page. And then you would have to say, hey, this is an error here, this is what you need to know. Please make sure you do that. Doesn't happen very often, but
I was only talking about errors. I wasn't talking about other items.
So you guys
Calendar
could-
is sometimes off too. I mean, errors pop up.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a master order in place.
So clarification, I think that fits under there.
Keep in touch, share professional expertise.
I just went to the iLearn class just a minute ago, and the news, when our students log in now, they're going to be actually see it, like our announcement. It's not going to be mixed in with other classes. So I kind of feel like when we transition, my notes of instructor won't have to be like posting everything I try to do in an announcement and then into notes. I can really focus my notes of instructor now, and I can separate the two and really, it seems, instead of like having to put the same information like 4 different places, I'll be able to really focus that page.
Yeah, multi-class feedback. Give directions to help students find success. So we've got a couple examples here we want to show you that we've seen. So we'll start off with the poor examples. is-
Where did they come from? Do we need to be-
Right, you're not in
So some of these,
Yes, who it is to the class.
some of these have been created. Some of these were conspicuous and taken. Some of these are from my own classroom. You, Brad's voice here for a second. All right, so just a couple things we've seen. This is a great one. If your notes from instructor becomes this huge lecture series, where it becomes this long page full of all sorts of great things, right?
You sure that's not logical?
So, can anybody tell me what the problem with this is? That's one. What else? So what's wrong with it being too long, besides the fact that students won't read it?
We're not to add to their load.
It changes course design by adding to their load. That's exactly right. All right, so we try to avoid all those things. So that was not a real one, but we've seen a couple like that. We actually went all over and copied and pasted different things from people's and created our own that was really super long. But we have seen some that have been super, super long. A couple others that we've seen are this.
Oh, yeah. It's true.
You guys laugh, but this is the most common problem we have with notes from instructor. And the bigger problem that we have with this is that this conditions students in other classes to not look at other teachers' notes from instructor. So one person not doing this makes it bad for all the rest of us. This is the BYU-Idaho course design. We have notes from instructor. Please use them.
It's also kind of saying, you know, the instructor may, if they cared about you, use this page, but, you know, it's like kind of slap in the face as a student to read that.
This is the other one we've seen, kind of along the same lines.
Oh, they are.
Like, okay, so what is this page guaranteed to have?
Can't replace that.
Yeah.
I think there's a comment.
Well, I don't know how, because I can't remember, but my TGL somehow has set it up so that they can't go on to the lesson until they read the notes to instructor.
Right, which is something that's been brought up to us recently that I don't know that
We've talked about this in the community. There's a great discussion happening in the community about this very same thing. One thing we found is it is possible to set that page to 0 minutes, which means they have to look at it, but after that they can jump to other things, right? It doesn't mean they have to stay there for 2 or 3 minutes. We've seen a couple of instructors that have set theirs for 20 minutes,
Whoa.
or 10 minutes, or even 5.
or
And-
where they have to participate in the discussion they put on there, which is kind of like adding course content
Yeah.
before they can go on to something else. So
I set mine for a minute, and it was making them stop, and then I explained in the orientation that it would do that in just a minute, and it took away a lot of questions I would have, because then they just knew from the beginning they had to stop, and it's not very long
Right.
to read or watch and move on, and it took away a lot of my emails.
I think it's a good principle and idea, just we have to be consistent with how we apply it, because Online Support Center, for instance, has gotten a ton of calls from students confused in certain courses. I'm not saying your courses, about how do they.
Certain Macs that are a little older, MacBooks, and problems that time limit mold on is going to advance. But if you set it for under 2 minutes, you don't have that problem.
Yeah. Everything in moderation, right?
I just came across a couple of teachers in my group that they have their notes from the instructor, but it's just a quick link. Is that okay, or do you want the visual and you want it all there? So in other words,
A link to like a screencast.
a link
Yeah, like if
to
you did a link.
Dropbox or something else where they can hold it up. Is that?
It's probably easier.
It's better than what some of the bad examples we've seen.
I recommended that you put a picture there so they don't skim over it. At first I looked at it, well, whoa, nothing there, but then, you know, I just wondered.
And the student might have the same impression as their first
So
looking at it.
something to make it more obvious, we have them.
As far as user experience goes, it's not a great user experience. It takes them out of the LMS, takes them away from iLearn. So you're making them jump out and then jump back into your class or back and forth. You're always going to get better for students if it's there. If you make them click something extra to go somewhere else to read your notes from instructor, you're going to have some attrition in those numbers of students that read your notes from instructor.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so here's just a couple quick examples of good examples we've seen. So we've seen some great things on engaging questions, images that start questions off. We've got whole class feedback. And so this person's just pointing out some really great whole class feedback ideas, some really great insight and experiences were shared. I'm grateful to all of you for making the class better. So she's telling, she's doing some positive reinforcement. I've seen some people like pull out students' discussion board posts from the prior week and say, this was a great post. This is the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. And they get permission from the students to do stuff like that prior. A place to share spiritual relevant thoughts. We've seen some of those examples. Providing tips on how to successfully complete this week's upcoming assignment. Nice, easy steps. Bullet, a numbered list here makes that nice and easy to read. An opportunity to provide an overview for the coming week's assignments. This is another thing that we've all kind of talked about. So a lot of these are text. There's nothing wrong with them. Just make sure that you're not recreating the wheel and making them overload with all this extra work. This person was interesting because in their notes from instructor, they divided up the class with roles in their discussion board. And so you've got supporter, scriptorian, and questioner, and they divided up by last names. And so this person's getting nice, great instruction for the rest of the week. Based off the rest of the week, you're going to be split up into these kind of roles. So anyway, those are just a couple of the examples that we have on good and bad examples of Master Instructor.
Okay, we're going to do a quick group activity. Get into groups of about 4, and we want you to discuss in just about 5 minutes the differences with how you're using these in Brain Honey, or assuming most of you are Brain Honey. What do you use notes from instructor from versus announcements versus email? I know there's some different philosophies out there about how you guys are using those. So for the next 5 minutes, let's discuss those in groups and then appoint a spokesperson that can just kind of summarize for us the thoughts in your group about, are there differences in what you put where? Do you just copy the same page to all of them? Okay. Okay, we don't have too much time, so spokesperson from your group, if you can tell us in like 30 seconds. It's basic consensus of how you guys are.
Okay, fine, I'll do it. So these two, they send out their notes from instructors and post them in an email and announcements all the same. Yes.
In hopes that it gets read sometime, somewhere.
And then she and I will put a midweek announcement on a Wednesday saying, hey, make sure that you started this assignment because you need to have 4 days of tracking or whatever it is.
Okay, so midweek announcement.
I do something similar, but something that my group brought up is that if you are posting the exact same thing in all three, then students will get in the habit of only reading the email, or only reading the announcement, or only reading the notes from instructor. And then they get into a new course where the teacher does it different, and they're not reading the announcements and the emails and the notes from instructor.
Good point. Yeah, like we kind of mentioned before, there are different philosophies that I've heard behind all of these, and they're logical, rational philosophies too. Okay, what about this group?
His was very similar to theirs, same thing in all three. His is different because he has project-based, and so he has one notes from instructor for 4 weeks. And so he puts some information there, but he uses the announcements very heavily for weekly information. Yeah, and then uses emails I thought was cool. If a student asks a question, he'll do a class-wide email. This question was asked, here's the response. And the students really like that. I make my notes from instructor required. I do 1 minute on mine, and I teach from the beginning. I'm like, you have to look at it. Or you can go on to the rest of the, the stuff for the week. My announcements is usually a spiritual, uplifting thing. And I'll copy that in the email. So announcements for email, I'm hoping to get it somewhere. Yeah.
Notes different. And so there's different things depending on courses too. Okay, let's go with this. I'm not sure what you guys are.
We already
Whatever.
We have already did
similar to
like the first group.
Okay.
I was saying that I use email, I teach GS120L,
And they were saying they only use email if it's a specific question or it's a specific students. I use mine. I always send out one on Monday that's like, I hope you had a great weekend, but it's time to get back to work. Because if I don't, and that usually gets the ball rolling. If I don't do any sort of email to them on Monday, I won't see any activity or anything. And then my GS120 students will write me back emails, questions. But if I don't start the ball rolling in a week, then I feel like participation doesn't happen.
So maybe a 120 level versus a 300 level class
Yeah.
are gonna
And
be
it's
different.
And is that different from your notes from instructor?
Notes from instructor is different. And then emails I do just say, welcome to class. I hope you have a great week. Here's some
Okay,
tips.
so shorter.
Just on that one, that's one thing that we talked about. I have the 120, which is in Pathways, which students have their own personal email. And so most of my communication is to their personal email. Whereas he is like, well, he doesn't rely on his email because it's just the school one and they're only going there for academics. And I know that they're going to their email because it's one they've already had, before. And so
Yeah,
it
that's
feels
an
a lot
interesting
more
differentiation with Pathway. We probably won't be able to hear from all the groups, but one other group that just had something different, it hasn't been said. Tanya?
One of the things with the email that we've done is to shoot off good notes. You're doing something great in this. So an encouragement email to individual students.
Okay.
And then also for some type of holiday or something, send them wishes that way. So.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I embed videos, I teach math, so I embed Khan Academy videos in my notes to instructor, because you can't embed an announcement. And that way they know, and I set it for 1 minute, just so they know it's there. So if they have a question about slope in the middle of the assignment, they don't have to try and search themselves, they can just go click on that video.
Right.
Does anyone send out like an announcement or an email that says, hey, my notes from instructor have been updated for this week, go check them out?
I know
Just call
that's
it that?
Hillary Weaver. That's when I started changing I'm doing the exact same thing in all of them. Really quickly.
As you're moving forward, Heather, I'd like you to consider a course like Jordan's, where he has another system where most of the work is being done. Maybe you can describe it a little bit better, but iLearn isn't the hub because his program uses software.
Oh, right.
And we've got a handful of classes
Yeah,
that do
we
the same thing, and each one is different, and so we have to talk about that on an individual basis.
I think we'll get to a point where we kind of address really quickly, like, because the next slide. Oh, okay, we can just skip through this, because this was part of our activity. Oh, wait, let me just say before you move on. So we talked about principles at the beginning, and that's what we want you to focus on. I know I'm not talking about like all instructors right now, but if those principles are being met, like you are giving whole life feedback to the class if it's needed, encouraging students where it's needed, clarifying stuff that isn't clear about the course, that this is the place that you are to do those things, sharing personal experiences and adding that personal human element. So those should be the things, and these are things that are actually written in both on the announcements and notes from instructor portion of the course visit rubric that your teaching group leader should be looking for. I'm hoping we'll give more of a message to them after this conference, but that it's the principle is more important than where exactly this is located and where you've put this in. Okay?
I guess my question for you is, I tried, I know our lessons, probably everyone's open 10 days before, so if I'm getting assignments from lesson 5, but most of my students don't really work ahead, how do I get whole class feedback on the lesson 6 notes from instructor when their lesson 5 assignments are due Saturday? Or do you do it whole class feedback in lesson 6 notes from instructor from lesson 4 that's been 2 weeks now? I don't know.
Whenever you have it, you can send out an announcement midweek even about it. I'm sure.
In my class, we have similar assignments, so there's multiple case studies that they do throughout the semester. So after I finish grading one, we can work 2 weeks ahead of my class. When it gets to the next one 2 weeks later, I go back to the first one and say, okay, here are my notes. Here's some of the themes, just a reminder, we did this a couple weeks ago, this is what you did well. So if you've got those repeat assignments, that's where I really enjoy doing that.
Let me jump in here and say on that particular problem, and that's been a big problem because I know a lot of GS120 open 10 days early, some of the lessons. If you post your notes for instructor and then require them to view them for 1 minute, after it's open, say Monday, it opened 9 days ago, but you open it on Monday, your notes from instructor, they will have to do that page. Even if they've worked ahead prior, they'll have to do that page on Monday, the next day they come out.
Do you have a sense of what the students look at the most? Are they reading email more, notes from instructor, or announcements?
Unfortunately, we don't have like a God thing from students to know numbers on that.
You can kind of do that yourself if you show minutes viewed. There's actually, you can view ungraded columns in your gradebook. So pages that are not graded, you can view, and you can show minutes. And you kind of gauge that a little bit yourself to see kind of where people are at. But ultimately, you'll be able to tell whether they're there or email.
I think it differs from class to class too, depending on how the instructor.
Yeah.
Okay, we got it.
Yeah, let me just say, leading into what Dave's going to say, this is just, of course, the course visit rubric, that, as teaching group leaders, tell this to your teaching group leader, and we'll try to reinforce it with them. But if you're putting it all, say, in your class, the way that it's structured, you're in a different, I don't know what, LMS mostly, but if you're using notes from instructor more than announcements, but you're fulfilling all of those principles, all of these principles, then, your teaching group leader should be able to say, not applicable, because you've been fulfilling all those principles.
They don't.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of a new communication that we're wanting to start communicating, especially because of the move to iLearn 3, which Dave's going to talk about a little bit.
Good.
Because this is answering Arthur's question from earlier, because there's not, it's going to be a different structure, and it is a different structure in each of the LMSs.
Okay, so the reason why we brought up the notes from instructor, notes from instructor, announcements, and email is because those tools are all broken in Brain Honey, right? The reason why they're broken is they don't notify students at all. And if they notified students, we wouldn't have to duplicate all these things like we were doing. And so when we get into iLearn 3, there's a new page. It's called the course landing page. As soon as they get to your course, the first thing they see is a news tool. And the news tool is now notes from instructor. Instructor profile, bio, instructor introduction, weekly announcements. It's basically the instructor's blog, and it's got front page real estate. Okay, so as soon as they land there, they get there. Now, it also has notifications built in, but in Brightspace, everything is regulated by the user. So the user set up whether or not they get email or not. So the way I'm going to handle this in my own class is I'm going to get in there the first day of school, and I'm going to set my expectations like I would in a regular classroom. And I'm going to say, this is where all my news and announcements are going to be. If you want to get notified, you better go in and set up your notifications so that when new news items are posted, you're getting emails. Because I'm not going to do it anymore. Because they can even set that to get SMS messages. So they'll get text messages when I post that news tool. They can get text messages when I post and respond to their blog posts or their discussion board posts when I grade their assignments. The notifications throughout are hands down one of my favorite features of Brightspace, of iLearn 3. I wanted to just jump out real quick and show you a couple of examples. All right, so this is an art class happening right now. I don't even know who the instructor is. I just kind of picked on them, and so you'll see this is their news item. This is their course landing page. So their news tool, they've got great images, they've got videos, they've got whole class feedback.
Just to break in here, it's for the whole semester. Oh. So the most recent steps at the top, news will not be separate pages. It's one page.
It's like a blog.
Yeah.
It's a blog roll, right? And so here's the other thing is students can get on here and they can dismiss these things, right? So they can say, okay, I've read that news item, I can dismiss it. You as the instructor can update that same blog post and say, this is a major update, push it back to the front page. And so every student's already dismissed it, you just push it back to the front page.
So right now we can preload our semester like with notes from instructor that we created that we feel good about reusing. On this one, is there a time feature where you can say, can you post this at this date?
Yes. Yeah. You can say publish dates on any date you want to. Some of the other really cool things is you can use the enrollment first variable, like we did in template feedback, right? So you can say, boom, I'm going to insert Jana Lee's name right there in the front. And so it's going to say insert first name, and it's going to say, hi, Jana Lee, this is your notes for week 1. And so I can personalize this news tool to each of my students.
But will they carry over from semester to semester? Or do we have to go back in and read?
So every course offering is its own course offering. They're all in separate buckets. So what you have to do is go back to previous semesters, copy and paste it, and bring it back over. Now, here's the one important note. A lot of you would like to change your notes from instructor into discussion boards. This news tool does not have any discussion in it. Okay, so that's where it's lacking. So here's what we're doing instead is we have made it so that there's going to be an instructor space, a non-graded discussion board that is going to be in every class that you can choose to use or not.
And will it show up on that first page?
It will not be. It's going to be inside the course content. So this is only the news tool. It'll be inside the course content.
Called
So that's only a place to.
Instructor Space. It's gonna be called Instructor Space.
Instructor Space is
If you
what we
were in
call
the
it.
last I Learn Free session, yeah, Instructor Space, that's the discussion board.
And so it's only used to engage with students. So if you want to like give your students a question at the beginning of the week to kind of help them start getting their mind rolling into the content for that week, that's where you do it. If you want to ask questions about, share pictures about what your kids dressed up for as Halloween this week. Any place you want to discuss and engage with students, that's what the Instructor Space is for. But this news tool is where you want notes from instructor, whole class feedback, all these things we've been talking about today that we currently consider as notes from instructor, go here.
So when we do move into I Learn Free, the course visit rubric will reflect that too. There's not going to be a separate notes from instructor, announcements, whatever section. It'll just be news. This will be the news page.
So with that, we have to sign off because we're already 5 minutes over. So we really appreciate you guys coming. There's if you guys will give us a little bit of feedback inside the app's got a little survey for us, and
Would you show it to the wheel?
Yeah.